Back during the presidential campaign, Barack Obama talked about fighting climate change by suggesting at times limits on how Americans could set their thermostats inside of their home. Now the new White House science advisor is talking about much more ambitious ideas, using technology to reset the Earth's climate ourselves, controlling our weather. Is this really possible? Pat Michaels, climatologist, he wrote a book called Climate of Extremes, Global Warming Science They Don't Want You to Know. How are you, sir? Good morning to you.
I'm just fine. This is certainly a kooky idea, I have to admit.
Kooky? We haven't heard that.
Well, you know, it's also not
new. Let me just set the stage for you. Okay, this gentleman by the name of, hang on one second, John Holdren. Okay, he has this idea for how you can go in the atmosphere, literally into space, and alter the weather. Now, what is his plan? Let's explain that first.
The idea is if you took some missiles or whatever and spread sulfate aerosol, it's the same kind of thing that comes out of a smokestack in an uncontrolled power plant that we call pollution. See, we put this into the stratosphere, and it reflects away the sun's radiation, and it counters the effects of carbon dioxide in the lower atmosphere causing global warming. So you counter the global warming. It's not the first time it's been proposed. Actually, in the old communist Soviet Union, they had a state-type climatologist named Budiko who proposed that aircraft be given flares on their wingtips and that they fly low in the stratosphere, and that this would counter any possible effects of global warming.
So the Soviets had tried this before? Was it effective for them?
They proposed it. They proposed it. They most certainly did. It's nothing new, and you know, I would love to see the environmental impact statement on this. We have no idea what this would really do. We could, you know, our computer models give us large ranges of what something like this might do. But imagine if somebody in Kansas says, "Hey, wait a minute! I didn't get my normal rain for 5 years, and I'm blaming the fact that we put this junk in the stratosphere." Secondly, it would have to be a major international agreement. Do you think the Europeans who won't eat genetically engineered food are going to allow the United States to put junk in the stratosphere?
A big old fat chance on that. There's this thing they call cloud seeding, S-E-E-D-I-N-G. And
right.
They put droplets in the clouds to create rainwater. Now, is this far afield from that?
This is much, much bigger than that. Cloud seeding tends to work in warm kind of thunderheads down in the tropics, where you put something in them that makes raindrops coalesce, and you get more rain out of it. This is a much less proven technology, and also brings a great question up that we got to ask.
What is that?
Okay. What temperature do you want the surface of the Earth to be?
Well, Megan and I just decided on 72 degrees, ocean blue skies, no humidity.
Light breeze.
Why can't...
I'd like that.
Well,
I'd like that, but I'd love to see the international... I'd love to see the international discussion on what it should be. Should it be what it was after the end of the last ice age, when it was a few degrees warmer? I said warmer than it is today. Or should it be where it was before we started to burn fossil fuel, in the Little Ice Age, when it was pretty chilly, and they wrote all those novels about how horrible it was in Europe? What we're going to do, Pat.
We're going to throw out an open invitation for John Holdren to come on our air and explain what he would like to do, and then we'll compare your answers with his and see if something like this is possible someday.
See if he will come on opposed.
In the meantime, please. I want you to know, yesterday, April 8th, 2009. It snowed in New York City.
Blizzard.
Have a great day, Pat. Pat Michaels.
Please remember the world that you are now seeing, for this natural world is in jeopardy. And even if you are willing to help put an end to what you are about to see, you may never be able to see the world in the same way again. In the early part of 1999, an immense operation began, an operation using aircraft that many of us will find difficult to accept. This operation involves a dispersal of... What you are seeing now is quite normal. These contrails are the trademark of high-altitude aircraft since the close of World War II. You notice that the condensation disappears fairly quickly, much like your breath on a cold winter day. This is as it should be, and as it has been. For those curious enough to delve into the physics, chemistry, and thermodynamics of contrails, this normalcy has a more thorough explanation. Yes, science and common sense do agree, and the balances of nature are achieved with this common phenomenon. And now we must take a different turn, a turn to explore an unusual world that now surrounds us, and yet a world that many of us remain unaware of. The atmosphere of this planet has been changed, and you are now being introduced to one of the main causes of that change. The aircraft at the upper portion of the screen is leaving a normal contrail, and it vanishes as any trail of water vapor is expected to. But beneath it you see an aircraft emission that is stationary, thick, continuous, and persistent, and it must eventually be concluded that it is not primarily water vapor. The environmental conditions for each trail are not exceptionally different from one another, and yet the result and impact from each trail is entirely different. The only logical way this can occur is if the trails themselves are very different from one another, and indeed they are. The majority of the footage that you are now seeing has been filmed in the high desert regions of New Mexico. This is an arid environment with very low humidity levels. It is, in fact, a classic region for conventional contrail formation. Contrails themselves can and do form easily in a low humidity environment. In the past, the passing of a short-lived contrail in the high, clear desert sky was an innocuous and frequent occurrence. Cold and dry conditions, exactly those conditions that are normally found in the upper atmosphere, are extremely favorable to contrail formation. The humidity levels of the upper atmosphere are actually relatively low, and is one of the very reasons that most clouds occur in the middle of the troposphere, being the lower portion of our atmosphere up to an altitude of approximately 7 miles or so. As this examination of our atmosphere continues, we will be now required to consider 4 types of events or phenomena. In addition to the customary existence of clouds and contrails, we must now consider a new entry, that of the aerosol. An aerosol is a solid particle in suspension, either in a liquid or a gas, and in this case we are considering the atmosphere as the gas to study. The aerosols will manifest in 2 primary forms, as an aerosol emission from aircraft and as an aggregate or collection of aerosols in the atmosphere. A suitable term for this collection of aerosols is an aerosol bank. It is known now that the persistent trails that form the subject of this film are primarily solid in nature and origin, and that they are not predominantly water vapor. A brief explanation of cloud formation will help us to understand why this is so. Clouds, that is, normal clouds, require 2 fundamental elements to form, particles and moisture. Clouds are not suited to form in especially clean air. They require particulate matter, called condensation nuclei, that act as a base for water vapor to adhere to. The size of these nuclei, for the process to be effective,